Hello and welcome to Choice Event 58. I already see that many of you are very early and already here, and you waited maybe 1 or 2 minutes to get started now, but I'm super happy to have you and also to directly today welcome a few people with me on stage. So it's a very special Choice event today. I have Laure here. Hello. How are you?
Pretty good. Already getting used to not speak on mute.
Great. And then we have Cristina also here from BearingPoint. Hello. How are you today?
Very nice and glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
Great. And from where are you actually joining us both today?
I'm joining you from Romania, Sibiu.
And Frankfurt, Germany.
And I'm joining from Berlin. So it's nice to have all these different locations. And from my side, I will also have Yasha, my co-founder, joining. So hello, Yasha. How are you?
Hello everyone. Pretty good. Joining us from Berlin. Excited for the webinar and really happy to be here.
Great. Yeah, so why do we have this special setup with so many people on stage? Normally, I'm mainly speaking in the beginning, and then I have maybe 1 or 2 experts joining. I quickly gonna share that before we go into the first starts of the webinar. So this webinar is all about the insights from our Climate Transformation Summit that not happened more than a month ago. And as this summit is really meant as not only a great way for networking and business opportunities, it's really meant for getting into actions, for implementing your strategy towards decarbonization. And this is why we have worked together with BearingPoint to really very quickly capture most of the insights, hopefully, and bring them together for you. And we're going to present that in this webinar. And therefore, I mainly would ask maybe Laure to share a few more words on that collaboration, why you are working on that topic, and how you are the perfect expert to work together with us on supply chain decarbonization.
Thanks, Lara, for this already very good introduction. So then real quick on our side. So my name is Laure and I'm here joined by Cristina. We are both respectively manager and advisor at BearingPoint, both sustainability enthusiasts. Just a quick word about BearingPoint. We are a European-based independent consulting company. We provide business and technology consulting services on, among other, sustainability, such as ESG reporting, e-mobility, sustainable supply chain, and a lot of other topics. And we always bring a holistic and pragmatic view on sustainability, and that's why we are here today as partner of the Climate Choice on the topic of supply enablement in climate-oriented action. So basically, how do you complement a tool and bring action to decarbonize your supply chain? And very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for that short overview. I think it's always best to hear first who's all here. And yeah, for us, obviously, it's an amazing support to be so quick in like capturing all the knowledge and make sure that we have experts working with us on getting everything right. And before we go into sharing everything we have worked on, very quickly for maybe the ones that are joining the first time in one of our choice events, how we are going to work here together. So basically, we very much invite you to be part of that webinar. So each of those webinars are meant as a learning, insight, and connecting opportunity for you. So what we have is 2 possibilities to be active and share. So first is really, maybe you see it on the bottom or on the top of your screen, the Q&A function or Fragen und Antworten, if you have a German setup. And there I would very much invite you to put all your questions during the webinar. We will see them, we will gather them and answer them in the end all together. And in the beginning, because you have heard our introduction, we are super curious to learn who is joining today. So please share your name and maybe if you want from where you are joining today. So in my case, it would be Lara from Berlin. And then the others also here see who are joining today in that webinar. So I'm gonna see who's the first one who dares. It's Irina from Berlin. And actually, I must admit, before there was Teresa who already shared something. So great, Irina, you already are the bravest one, so to say. Amori from Amsterdam. I'm sorry for not pronouncing it the right way. Thalia from Berlin. Therese von Osnabrück, now we know. Ella from Munich. And Nana also from Bavaria. Great, so now you know where to find this function. We are super honored to have you all. And please make sure to use the chat function the whole time during the webinar. Just put your question that you don't forget it for later. And you're also happy to share or comment what others have said, or maybe you want to share a link or share your experiences as well. Great, and then the second way to stay in contact after the webinar, because we always learn it's way too short, is the invitation to our Slack community. So you should have gotten that while you signed up. You will get it later as well. So here you can always be up to date for the next webinars for insights all around climate transformation. And this leads me quickly to the climate choice. Just if you have not been part of the summit and you still wanted to know what were the insights, who is a climate choice? Why are we doing the summit and the webinars? We are a climate tech company from Berlin, providing our climate intelligence platform to companies to decarbonize their supply chain. And therefore, we are very much working in those webinars and on the annually summit on bringing all the experts from the field together, but also practitioners who are really working in the companies on making this transformation happen. To really share knowledge, because it does not need one solution, it does not need one step. We really need to collaborate all together and make it happen that we get step by step into decarbonization. And that directly leads me to today's webinar. So we have called it Tackling Scope 3 Together, because this summit was all about the topic making decarbonization happen in Scope 3. And this is also what you will find in our climate playbook, where we have put all the insights together. And no worries, you're gonna have the access to the climate playbook afterwards. So we will send you a link where you can download it exclusively. So it's not already on a website or something, you are the first ones to get it. And what you will find in that climate playbook is what we will show you today in that webinar, and we will split it up. So you hear from all of us different areas of expertise and hopefully most insightful insights into how to make decarbonization happen and what we learned during the summit from different areas. Maybe here the claimer in the playbook, you also find some examples or quotes from the summit. Here in this webinar, we really try to have it more streamlined, so you just get the insights, what are the different topic areas. And to mainly cluster it, the 4 areas that we're going to share and that are also in the climate playbook are the actionable framework for holistic climate management, guiding principles for supply chain engagement, and then your challenges and best practices, how to overcome the Scope 3 challenge, and also an actionable approach to supply chain decarbonization, where you put really all these different things into action. So let me start with it. And also let me give you a quick overview of the summit for everyone who was not part of it, so that you just know what we are talking about. So the summit happened, as said, a month ago, and it was now the 4th time that this online transformation summit was possible to organize with our climate community. We had many great partners, one of them BearingPoint, but a lot of them also contributing in one way or the other as speakers or as workshop providers or even solution providers, where the participants could see which kind of next steps or different solutions they might need to decarbonize. And what we have at fact and numbers is that we had around 670 participants from 27 countries. So we are really happy about that. We had most of the participants, over 80%, joining a workshop. So maybe this is also for you to know, where a lot of deep dive happened, so that we didn't just have a conversation, but really learning experiences for the different participants. We had 20% of the people coming from corporates, 30% from SMEs. And we reached almost our 50-50 goal. So we said this time we should be able to have 50% female speakers, and we overachieved a little bit. So we had 52. I'm super happy about that, actually. It was the first time in 4 times organizing the summit. And then we had an online solution area where the visitors could download materials, explore the different solutions, and we had more of 1,200 visitors to these booths and sharing knowledge. And then, which is actually really surprising each year for me, is the summit is an 18 hours event. So on both days, 9 hours, and on average, people joined 11 hours. So everyone was really of the participation very, very much in there, and joining also and sharing their own knowledge. And why do we have this approach of getting everyone together? Is, as said, we really understand us as a platform for a climate community to tackle this climate transformation together. And as there are so many changes, we really see that a lot of different partners can bring in their perspectives of how to make this responsibility for companies really able, and like how they can really go into transformation. So having said that, we are super grateful for all our different partners. And then why did we choose the topic of Scope 3? So in the first year, we started with how to reduce emissions. Next, we had how to set science-based targets. Last year was like how to come from a company to a supply chain perspective. And this year, we really focused on how to make decarbonization in Scope 3 happen. And to visualize that is this graphic here. I guess a lot of you have maybe seen it in one way or the other from the greenhouse gas protocol, is when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions, it's sometimes easy to just think of the emissions that a company has directly by itself. So mainly your own buildings or your own cars and the own production side and so on. But then you have also indirect emissions, so everything you get from your energy. And then you have even more indirect emissions, and that is everything you have in your supply chain. And this is the area where it becomes really hard to go into decarbonization, because companies not directly but indirectly own these emissions and can have challenges where we look later into how to manage these emissions, reduce risk, and find a aligned strategy on working towards net zero. And before we go into what we all need to make this transformation happen, that's also what you have in the guideline. It's always best to also share why it's so important for businesses to look into that. And we hear that in the summit quite often, that there is for sure a beneficial also economic outcome beside all the impacts we all want to generate for the environment. So there is mentioned that until 2030, there are really trillions of opportunities coming up for different companies to create new business models, new strategies. And then on the other hand, there are also a lot of regulations that come up that really want companies to not only reduce emissions, but find a way to, at one point, work together with their supply chain to make decarbonization happen in Scope 3 as well. So no matter which kind of incentives you are following, if those are more economically or more the regulation, for companies, climate management really becomes essential. And this is the first part that we work together during the summit in different workshops as well, and different panels, and that we share in the best practice guide, is to start in climate transformation and your own decarbonization journey, always with yourself. Even though you want to come to Scope 3 and your suppliers, you need to really have the foundation to understand what the topic of climate and decarbonization is really all about. And what we often have first in mind are CO2 emissions. And that is for sure a great way to start, and to really have a number you can approach and you can see and track. But then it's not only about a number that is mostly giving you information about the past. So CO2 emissions are really something that you can track after a certain time. Mostly you do it in an annually reporting rhythm to calculate. But now that we come to that strategic way of really aligning your whole business model strategy towards the future, finding out how you want to work together with your suppliers and business partners to come into decarbonization, companies need to really make sure that they have an own climate governance, a strategy where they align to international climate goals, and that they can therefore manage their own risk. I think we have heard it a lot in the recent updates around CSRD. It's all about not only the risks from outside, so which kind of climate risk are you facing, but also which risks are maybe created by your own company. And then last but not least, it's also not only about reporting, measurement, having everything set up, but coming into actions. So the whole area of a roadmap, a transition plan, decarbonization measures are becoming essential for companies. So the first key point that we have laid out in the climate playbook is whenever you want to go to scope 3, you still have to focus on your own company, on your own setup, and try to understand which kind of metrics, indicators you need to collect first in your own company, which kind of setup you need for an holistic management, and how from this kind of foundation and knowledge, you can then approach your business partners to share knowledge and go into next steps. And from here, I would hand over again to Laure and stop sharing my screen so that we can come into the second area of best practices, how to overcome challenges.
Thank you, Lara. Can you all see my screen?
Looks great.
Okay, perfect. Then I will let Cristina introduce maybe some challenges that we are all in line with the context here, and then we'll go a bit more into concrete measures, what you can do and how you can do it, and a quick wrap up before handing over back to Lara. So Cristina, stage is yours.
Thank you. Can you please go to the next slide then? Thanks, Laure. So from our perspective, since we are looking at two sides of the same onion, and decarbonization being the onion in this metaphor we use, we share the same struggles. So buyers and suppliers seem to share the same struggles. So from our perspective, what we can do to overcome this challenge is to learn from each other, be honest and upfront about them. Modern supply chains are complex and multi-tiered. Lack of transparency is one of the biggest challenges everyone faces, especially when we look beyond tier 1. How can we overcome this transparency? We will talk about it in depth later. But of course, everything comes down to open collaboration and communication with your suppliers. Once you go to your tier 1 suppliers, this will ripple down to other tiers as well. And what we strongly believe is that no one will see the end of the decarbonization journey alone. So this is the only way we can make it. Another very important challenge everyone faces, both suppliers and buyers, are insufficient training and skill set. Also out of our own experience from our studies that we performed at BearingPoint, both on the procurement and the finance side, this is what participants have answered to. We know that suppliers feel lost at the beginning, don't know where to start. Maybe they don't know where to start, but they also have a not very accurate assessment as to where to stand. This is also one of the points which our studies showed, that there is quite a gap between strategy and execution. We know they need to feel supported and understood, and we can offer our support there. And of course, but not, last but not least, there are the financial barriers. Upfront investment costs and uncertainty in return on investment. It's something which has us all puzzled, and we are all still trying to figure out. So what we want to do now is to walk you through the 6 guiding principles on how you can engage your suppliers in your decarbonization journey, and maybe to make one thing clear from the start is, for us, decarbonization does not mean offsetting, it means reducing emissions, and this is what we are focusing on now. Before we go into the details, we want to just lay out some prerequisites which we believe are vital before going to your suppliers with demands and setting targets. And it is that first you have to solve internally your knowledge gaps, find the resource, get the budget and the time for going on this decarbonization journeys. Of course, this means sitting at the same table with all your relevant departments, finance, procurement, so you can follow through on the commitments you make in the future to your suppliers in regards to support and empowering them. Of course, we all want to have climate action embedded in our core strategy. This is important to start with us, with the organizations before going to our suppliers, because we all need to do a shift in mindset. We cannot go on as we used to. We know sales cannot be the only trigger, so we have to start with ourselves. If we want to be credible, you have to first put the work into decarbonization yourself, even if it means starting at the same time with your suppliers, but going on the same journey together. Then you can really be transparent about challenges you faced and also help them when they face the same issues. And we at BearingPoint really encourage this practice what you preach approach, because we think it is important for them to see us as role models. Yeah. Now we, with this short prerequisite on the table, we want to go into the specifics of the 6 guiding principles. And I would like to hand over to Laure first to talk to you a bit about the baseline.
And as always, when we are talking with Cristina, I want to just add up one little thing here. One result also of our study showed that companies that are already baselining their carbon footprint have it much easier than they have already built up some kind of internal knowledge. They manage to get a budget for a first project, and then it really makes the other sustainability related projects easier. They're also less afraid of the Scope 3 emissions. So really start with yourself, and then you can start with others. So real quick now, of course, the very first step in this, or the very first best practice is to baseline your Scope 3 emissions, right? So there are different types. I will not get too much into the details. There are different types of baselining. You can either use a spend-based approach or an activity-based approach to identify really the hotspots. So which kind of categories are the most emitting, which are the ones you really should focus your energy and intention on. And then also, of course, it will help you segment your portfolio of suppliers and material to build up a consistent, let's say, matrix and approach, because of course you cannot do everything, but you should also not just focus on a few things. It's really identifying priorities and then finding a way to scale it up. You also need to take into account the climate maturity of your supplier, right? So especially the ones that you have identified as prioritize, either you know your suppliers well enough, or you can start engaging the conversation to understand what are their reporting capabilities, how digital are they, so do they already have some tools to calculate their own carbon footprint, what kind of data quality they have if you ask them to provide their carbon footprint, you know, what kind of framework for the calculation are they following? Because one big issue also with Scope 3 emissions is that, well, by definitions, it's emissions that you cannot control, right? So you need to let go on the controlling part and rather see how you can make use of what suppliers can share with you and how you work together on setting the same frameworks as well. So understand a little bit the positioning of your suppliers, how mature they are in terms of digitalization, reporting, what kind of data they have already and can send you before you start anything. So do that, and please do not start with, we want to be carbon neutral by 2050, and therefore please all suppliers be also carbon neutral by 2050. This will never work. You need to first be really concrete and pragmatic into what kind of suppliers you can already target on for, let's say, quick wins or the 80-20 approach, and then you can set your ambitions. Again, you cannot push things from top down. So you need to really discuss with your suppliers, have this kind of bottom-up approach, have open conversations. You can do also some surveys. I think, was it Siemens? There are a lot of examples out there that you can also have a look at, but basically they are doing some supplier survey to understand what are their challenges, what kind of difficulties they have, what is feasible for them to really, let's say, co-construct and co-define those targets to make sure that what you define as a common ambition is realistic and can be done by your suppliers, right? So it really means a two-way conversation, that you understand where they stand, because again, you cannot have extremely high ambitions if your supplier base is not ready, right? And of course, you can adjust that. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's really also adapting to your different segmentation, your different categories, your different suppliers' maturity, to make sure that you are addressing the right things to the right people. And you would see that if you set up realistic targets from the beginning, then you can gradually build up on that. It really doesn't make sense to just push something very ambitious if you and your suppliers believe it's not achievable. It's like, if you are not running, you don't go for a marathon from one day to the other, right? You have to really build up on your abilities. And of course, one thing to really keep in mind is that we hear a lot of companies out there who are saying, I will stop doing business with all of my suppliers who are not doing an EcoVadis or climate choice assessment. You also have to keep in mind the power dynamics between you and your suppliers, because you will do your segmentation, right? ABC suppliers, but you also are an ABC client to your own suppliers. So you cannot also expect them to all react and provide you exactly what you need if your power dynamics are imbalanced, right? So meaning, if you are working in a strategic partnership, you are an A client to A suppliers, of course, it will be much easier for you to build up on these ambitions, to drive them, to set up ambitious targets. But if you are a C client to an B or a C supplier, do you really want to put so much effort and pushing them and let's say dropping them or finding alternative suppliers, while you could just, let's say, rearrange your ambitions and go again gradually? So keep in mind this power dynamics. You cannot expect the same results and the same reaction from all of your suppliers. And you have to be also pragmatic, keep in mind your own position in this relationship with your supplier, and don't ask for the moon for suppliers from whom you are not the priority, right? So it goes both ways. Again, ABC analysis, power dynamics, targets, commitments, everything is a bidirectional approach. And now concretely how you can actually engage a bit more your suppliers. Back to Cristina to get into the details.
Yeah, so for sure, when you are developing your the decarbonization measures you want to discuss with your suppliers, you should always follow scientific guidance, and the standard frameworks are out there. Help and understand your suppliers and help them tailor their ambition to their own climate maturity, context, and capabilities. What you can do and what we suggest is support them with your knowledge sharing, with the best practices, and give them access to your trainings, to your experts, to supplier summits. This is, of course, not a one-time exercise. It's a continuous effort. When you start going down this road with your suppliers and you commit to these things, after you have also, of course, your internal support, coming back and circling back to how important it is to first be aligned internally with all your relevant departments, meaning procurement and finance. You have to see this as a journey as well, and not only be there and accompany them from the start with one or two, I don't know, best practice guidelines or a short workshop with them, but make it stick and go in them for the long run. And of course, circling back to also what Laure said, measure everything regarding to what kind of suppliers you are dealing with. Everything has to be pragmatic and tailored. You cannot have one approach that applies to all your suppliers. And of course, here again, we circle back to the power dynamics. Moving on, what you can do is to incentivize your suppliers to transform. We all want suppliers to become climate champions, and we can start by rewarding them if they do. This is why we advise you to integrate climate relevant data into procurement systems, supplier contracts, and supplier code of conducts, and encourage them to set ambitious yet realistic decarbonization practices. And if all these efforts are not coming to an end, you can also, according to the point where your suppliers are, you can also go towards low carbon alternatives. We advise also to support your clients, and especially small and medium-sized enterprises, by setting up something as a green fund, right, to help them in their development. You are partnering with them, you want them empowered, and you want to be able to also follow through on your commitments. Of course, this has to be aligned between all departments, because we want to all reach acceptable compromises, hence circling back to finance and procurement. If you are moving forward and want to work with them applying a malus approach, make sure that you transparently communicate to them how your RFP process is set up, why they weren't awarded maybe for this or the other job, and tell them if they are underperforming, that you can support them, and what are the steps that they get from a non-award to an award. I think it's not a sustainable approach to stop doing business with a supplier who is not sustainable at this time in time, and it's not meeting your climate criteria, but to really follow their progress, see if they are making efforts, if they are making progress, and transparently communicate to them how they can get from point A to point B.
And what you can do to help them if they are having resource or budget constraints as well.
For sure. This I would wanted to tackle here for the engagement. How can you engage them? Of course, it all boils down to continuous collaboration and communication. You want to help them also in getting the buy-in from their procurement organizations and their senior managers. If it's difficult for them, and if this conversation would be supported by your help, feel free to offer that. If this support from their senior management is possible to be made official, even better, because then it's easier for them to follow suit. We want to provide them also access to digital tools, free resources. If we embark on this journey before them, then of course we would have a set or of resources and like this help kit, which we can offer them in their journey. Supplier summits, it's something also we have seen works, and also we have a very straightforward and tested methodology and approach at BearingPoint, where we engage in this journey together with our suppliers, where we go from anything for analyzing, segmenting the supplier base, identifying the supplier pain points, linking them to the client strategy, and creating together with the suppliers an action plan, which we then also help follow through and implement. But of course, I cannot emphasize it enough. It's a long time process which we are embarking on. It's a continuous conversation, a continuous collaboration. And if we think that just doing it once at the beginning and setting some guidelines will suffice, well, it doesn't.
And if you think this is not achievable, well, yes and no, that's definitely the very ideal pictures, but there are already some companies who are there, and there are more and more who are getting there. So it's not unreachable, it's just a lot of effort, and it's a very pragmatic approach. And of course, the prerequisites have to be there. Very quick wrap up to give the stage back to Lara and Yasha. Of course, we already talked before about some of the benefits, but definitely the payback here is to be climate compliant, because of course, getting into decarbonization, you are compliant or even getting ahead of the very fast multiplying global regulation. You definitely get a competitive advantage of being an early mover, right? Position yourself as a leading player, and this will also, of course, inspire and empower other companies to follow suit, whether it's your own suppliers or just overall peers that are looking through successful journeys. You also will then better connect with your stakeholders and customers. That's specifically important for retail companies. But we see that now the demand for engagement is also, customers are asking for more and more transparencies, and it's going now beyond B2C and reaching more and more B2B chain as well. And finally, of course, if you are getting that far into the journey, it will cascade down, right? So we mentioned at the beginning, one challenge is the lack of transparency on the supply chain. If you drive a change and you are doing this very successfully with your suppliers and they see that it works, they will do the same, right? You can encourage them to do the same. You can share the approach and they can just do the same with their suppliers. And this is how baby step by baby step, you gain this transparency by enabling other companies to do that beyond your own reach. Thanks a lot. We had to rush through. It was a lot of content, but you will have even more in the playbook. So if you have any question that you want to address, please write it in the Q&A. We will get back to that at the end of the webinar. And back to you.
Yeah, thank you for these insights that you, as indeed said, find in the playbook. So for sure, we also captured everything there, and you don't have to write everything down. And I will, in a second, hand over to Jascha to go into what we shared also at the summit, what can be an actionable approach to set this whole thing into action. But before I do that, I would quickly do a small survey, because we have heard now a lot of the challenges companies can face and programs they might want to take or approaches. And also at the summit, we learned that everyone is somehow in a different stage. And whenever you talk about scope 3, also everyone has something different in mind. Someone have a really big supply chain, some really may think of their first 10 suppliers that are most important to them. So we really want to learn in which status of supply chain decarbonization are you, because yeah, we talked a lot and some of it might stick, some other things are maybe not really on your topic. So have you started such a program? Anything that you heard already sound familiar? Or you didn't, or you don't know because you're not working on it, or yeah, you already advanced in it and find out your own ways. So you can choose. There should be something on your screen, and I see a lot of you are already taking part. Some of you might need to decide in which way there are. And I see it's moving, it's interesting. And I will share it. So now you should see it on your screen. So I would say most of you haven't started or they don't have concrete plans. So this is 50%. Then 30%, big hooray to you, you just started. So maybe after the summit you got inspired. That's what I hope to think. But yeah, probably you were already in it. And then 5% of you are well advanced. So that's also great. You are very much invited to join in the chat as well and share maybe one or two of your experiences. Did you find something that was presented? And yeah, some of you don't know, maybe you're not working in that area. And then I have a small second question. You should see it again. So what were your key challenges? I'm not sure. Now it's shown. Someone helped me. That's great. So you have seen there can be a lot of different challenges. So is it the transparency beyond tier 1 that is most difficult to collect data here? Or is it that maybe you in your own team and the suppliers and or lack skills and training? Are there financial barriers maybe in your own team or to support the suppliers? And or you basically feel both sides are facing a lot of problems and there's a big mix of everything. So maybe you can share. And then the last point for sure, others, because yeah, as we hear, that can be a big bunch of different areas. So I see again, you are very much participating, and as it changed so much, I don't dare stopping yet, but now I would do so. And again, share it. So it's again 50-50, that's what I feel. The first part is you have mainly problems in finding the right data and the right training that's needed. And then there's 40%, so that's the biggest one. There is missing financial support. I guess that's always a big topic, no matter which new innovation approach you are driving. And sadly in climate, that's no other topic. And then 20% of you feel like, yeah, basically buyers and suppliers have the same problem. We all lack finance, training, data. So it's not really an advanced side on one side or the other. So I think that helps actually as an overview to see most people are just getting started or don't have a program yet. So Yasha, you can share with us, what did you learn about an actionable approach, bringing these 6 principles into practice? What is it companies can do next?
I'm super happy to take over, and thanks a lot, Laure and Cristina, for your input already. And yeah, we hope the climate playbook gives you some inspiration to actually take action, drive forward your supply chain decarbonization plans. And yeah, we have developed out of this also a pathway to scope 3 reduction, which we have learned from already companies taking action that are well advanced, and that we think it's very worthwhile to look at experiences and see how to implement the same and similar approaches to really yeah, streamline and set up systems for continuous improvement and decarbonization. And this basically sets up on the presentation and on the insights and principles that Laure and Cristina already presented, and really starts at, okay, we want to now take action and really drive change in the supply chain, and how can we really start and take an efficient approach. Typically, of course, there's preparation phase, right? There's hotspot analysis. We need to understand where to start, what are the emission drivers, and then really in a first step, we really learned also in the projects that we work, it's really helpful to first really understand also the supplier structure that was already mentioned. So really understanding the reporting readiness, the climate maturity of suppliers, what data can they provide, and start with this. Please don't do big questionnaires right away. This will lead to not a lot of suppliers answering this, and then also probably won't give you much insights. So really focus on what's the value for suppliers, how you can make it simple, and really get a first understanding to really kind of like qualify and then really understand on where to go deeper. Then really from that you can derive really a lot of insights, right? So understand on how to set ambitions. So if you know your supplier structure, what data can they already provide? Have they set targets? How they manage this transformation? How can you then categorize and cluster this data points for really getting deeper into specific procurement categories, for example, and really understand how can you drive change in this specific area. Also provide incentives, feedbacks to suppliers to really work on improving, and really provide tools, as Laure and Cristina mentioned already. Then, of course, it's really about taking action. There's approaches, of course, hosting supplier, dialogues, making clear what a category is for specific roadmaps, making it an open conversation, addressing, concerns, and also provide, maybe a forum for exchange, and really. Improve the concrete measures along the way. So it's, as mentioned already, it's a learning process where we all are learning, suppliers are learning, corporates are learning. So we really need to collaborate on those learnings and really implement change there together. And of course, in the end, this doesn't stop, right? I think Laure mentioned it before. So it's not a one-off act and one-off exercise. It's about continuous improvement cycles, setting up systems and processes that make sure you get constant data updates. You really automate, data collections and also measures for improvement. You understand on how does your supplier structure shift, and of course understand you're getting more and more along the way, more detailed and more better on scope 3 data, supplier specific scope 3 data as well. And of course, there's much more content in the playbook. So really happy to launching this today. You will get a link to the playbook after the summit with a lot of descriptions, a lot of details, more details if you want to learn around specific steps. And this will be shared after the webinar with you. And then if you really want to take concrete steps, we are also at the summit announced a scope 3 action group, actually, that I want to quickly speak about for companies, no matter where you're standing in your journey. So it's both for people that are just starting to understand their scope 3 emissions, but also for people that are more advanced and maybe have started to talk to key suppliers already, gathered some initial data, but now want to expand their programs to a broader supplier base. So we really understood a little bit about what are the challenges, of course, that a lot of companies at the summit mentioned, but also you just mentioned. I guess it's really about exchange, resources, learning, and understanding, maybe what are other companies doing to get budgets, what are, ways to, make a clear return on investment case on this. And a little bit, as you mentioned, right, the issues as you also confirmed, so issues that we're seeing a lot in sustainability and procurement departments, very practically, are, what data do we collect, from suppliers? How do we collect that data? How do we segment suppliers? How do we ensure development, right? And how do we deal with missing data? What resources do we make available for suppliers? So these are very practical day-to-day questions, right, that we see in sustainability and procurement departments, and exactly that's what we want to address in the Scope 3 group. So we really put this together into 3 modules that are also aligned with the process that we're just talked about. So it's about understanding your own climate management, where you stand, benchmark with peers, learn from peers on how things can be implemented that maybe are not implemented yet. We will work on supplier engagement, learn from each other, and then ultimately derive a reduction roadmap. So really, we want to solve core challenges together and make process. And really, it's an implementation program. So it will be supported with master classes on Scope 3 calculation. It will be, how to, what are the best practices to integrate this into your procurement systems and processes, the information, how can you empower buyers to really bring this into action. There will be networking available, and this is really a program that is designed around making change happen. While you're, of course, you don't have to take 6 months off. It's exactly the opposite. It's really designed to be, you can do this, and you can actually implement, no matter where you stand, learnings from this group. So each of these modules will have education, networking, and implementation phases. You will learn online, and you can really transfer individually in your teams, depending on where you stand at the moment. And it's really, action practice orientated, the whole program. You will also get access to tools. So it's all about the data, right? Like what data can we get? Where's the climate choice are focusing on this, right? Work 24 hours on thinking on how to can we provide the best data? So you get access to our data platform. We provide you with a lot of data that is already there to understand, and maybe don't have to address all the suppliers, but really can use available data to understand and answer some of these questions that are answered or that are at the examples that you can see. So understand which suppliers can provide you PCF data, what suppliers can have already started to set targets, and really get a holistic view on that. So a little bit, sorry about the months, it's still in German, but like a little bit on an overview on when does this start. So the application deadline is end of July. We already received a lot of applications from large companies, medium-sized companies. It's really about bringing, like the perspectives together. It will start then with, a preparation phase in July and August, where we support you also with questions around stakeholder engagement in your own organization. And then we will learn about climate management in September, go to supplier engagement in October and November, and really to derive a reduction roadmap in the new year, and really set you up for 2024. And you can see the appointments also on our website. We'll share a link. So it's 6 appointments, all online and hybrid. So all sessions will be recorded, so you can learn asynchronously and implement the change in the project as needed. Also about what you will so it's the pricing is for companies for less than 2,000 employees, 3,000 euro per person, and more than 2,000 per 5,000 euro per person. If you see the services that are included, the value goes beyond, of course, beyond that. It's really, we want to drive change together with companies. We've seen a lot of companies are unsure, are asking for exchange, and that's really what we want to address. Yeah, really encourage you, if you want to take action, let us know, and of course, yeah, take part. And why should you join? Of course, there's various reasons. I'm not going to go into all of them, but really it's about empowering you. So I think with that, we stop and go into Q&A, because I see we already have only 9 minutes left. Thanks a lot. And yeah, we'll share the link also afterwards. Lara, hand over to you again.
Great. Yeah, first of all, thanks for all my amazing speakers here on stage, so to say. Same setup as on the summit again, I would say. So many different insights. And yeah, I'm really happy we are able to put all the learnings so quickly together, and like give a next step also how to continue. And maybe there was already a question, I can bring it up. Here's the invitation, whatever kind of question came up from the audience, please, now is the time to put it in the chat so we can tackle it. And maybe first, it's a little bit a broader one. So Laure and Cristina, you probably have that more often working in sustainability procurement. How do you deal with all these maybe competing topics, even in sustainability? So you have social impact, you have climate impact. Here, someone asked really specifically about biodiversity. How do you make sure to maybe not get lost in all these different aims you can have, and which one you should focus on, or how do you feel, can it be split up or brought together?
Yeah, I will take that one. I love the question, because we never hear about biodiversity ever. Like, nobody considers it at the moment as an actual, component of sustainability. So it's really nice to have it mentioned here. I want to just go back a little bit to what we mentioned before with the struggle that everybody has around financial, right? So getting a return on investment and so on. And I want to circle back also to what I said at the beginning, that we saw in the study that companies that are already doing or baselining their own carbon footprint are more advanced and get easier budget. The reason is that it's pretty simple to, let's say, get a budget and a measurable return on investment with carbon emissions, because you can link it to money, right? So there is a price, like there is the carbon permits, the EU carbon permits with a market price, and you can, let's say, easily, once you have your carbon footprint, give it a euro tag, a price tag, whichever currency, and then you can see as your carbon footprint decreases what money you, let's say, somehow save. It's not real money, right? But if you evaluate your carbon footprint with a price tag, which is the metrics that every CFO would understand, and then you show that there is a reduction in that, theoretically, you also save up on your carbon budget and your price tag budget, then you are really showing tangible results. And this is, at the moment, only feasible with carbon footprint, right? You cannot really measure biodiversity. You cannot really measure your impact. You cannot say, hey, if we protect biodiversity by doing this and this and that, this project would cost, I don't know, 50K, and the return on investment will be that, because you just cannot quantify it. And this is true for biodiversity. This is true for a lot of other components of sustainability. And to get back to you, Lara, there's a lot of competing components in sustainability, but in fact, only two are really competing. That's carbon footprint. And that is topics around human rights and even, I would say, diversity and inclusion, because even human rights are somehow most often just a little paragraph in the code of conduct, but it's not really something that is tackled, which is why also more and more laws are coming to bring this one also on stage. For me, biodiversity is also a topic that was now very recently put on stage or highlighted by the IPCC reports, that there is a direct correlation between both, right? But if we see the pace at which business actually follows the IPCC, maybe in 30 years it will be a topic, but I doubt that it's really something that will come in the near future. So as a conclusion, at BearingPoint, we really focus on all dimensions of sustainability. It's very often hard to make companies understand that there is not just one priority. You can start with everything, a little bit of everything, right? But we see that the major focus is still around carbon footprint and human rights, diversity, inclusion, and does not go beyond that. So we are trying to raise awareness. We have projects around biodiversity impact calculation, but at the moment, I think the awareness is too low on the market to really, be able to make companies conscious about that. But
thanks for that answer. I think it could be something we do in our own webinar. I take that with me, because for sure, right, there's regulation now coming up in that area as well. So it gets more and more trackable. And also we do have actually a customer that just shared I'm not sure if it's already public, so I cannot say it, but they just shared how they work with biodiversity and then also our tool. So how they bring both approaches to the supply chain, as you said, like to make an approach if you're already starting, to not just lose something out, but like go into it. And but for sure, we are just seeing that it's now starting and that it hasn't been a habit in the last 10 years that everyone is already having. And maybe from there, Yasha, I would hand over to you saying there's one more question, and I tried to squeeze it in that I liked. Which was like, how does it all relate to reporting? So there are the changes in the CSRD, and we have here now, there are like also guidelines for biodiversity. There is a European supply chain law, there's a EU taxonomy. What do you would say to companies that are like, seeing all these regulations coming up, how does it tie to supply chain decarbonization? Does it make sense to do a project in that area? Does it help me with reporting and so on? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yes, it's like, of course, it makes sense. I think like that's the short answer, of course. I mean, like we will see the European supply chain due diligence version also considers climate and that's why it's very relevant. And also there's the question from Lakshmi, how the ESRS and the playbook come together. I mean, we really much also focus on recommendations of TCFD in the own climate management, and then also the ESRS also refers to TCFD and of course greenhouse gas protocol, etc. So it of course comes together, there's this other question from Carlos, if we will cover the German Lieferkettengesetz supply chain due diligence law in the during the program. We will very much focus on, of course, climate, but of course other ESG data is relevant from your suppliers as well. So yes, there will be, of course, possibilities to exchange, but it's really focused on like the learning content is about climate and driving change around that. So decarbonizing in your supplier base, that is the real the main focus of the program. So to wrap it up, it does really make sense from different perspectives, and really can encourage you to starting working rather sooner than later if possible. And really great that you're all here, and that also shows that you're really motivated to drive this change, which is great to see.
Yeah, thanks for the closing word. so to say. I would say that goes very much in line with what we learned at the summit, right? Regulation is really one point of the motivation, but then also it's so quickly changing. No one can really say they have made it perfectly from the beginning. Best is really to start with an intrinsic motivation to get it right. And then also the reporting will be much easier, or yeah, it's maybe too much to say to fall into place, but if you're really focusing on getting it put together and like building up a strategy, then you are most likely to be very much aligned with the regulation. And yeah, with that, maybe Laure and Cristina, do you have any closing words? If someone forgot the whole last hour, they have a blackout from the summit, what is maybe the key takeaway, one or like a sentence that you found for yourself? What is the essence of the playbook and that you put there together with us? Cristina is muted.
Cristina is on mute, unmuted, of course, now she is. So I think one key takeaway out of the playbook and the summit would be that a shift in mindset is needed. Decarbonization has to start now. It cannot be done alone. We have to team up and partner up with our suppliers. And this can only be achieved by continuously communicating, collaborating with them, and empowering and helping them where we can.
And yeah, fully agreed. And I think, Cristina, what we all talked about can be resumed in 3 words: walk the talk, right? And in general, you cannot teach a man to fish if you cannot yourself fish. So really start with yourself before you look around. That will make things much easier for everybody and much faster.
Great. And I thank you so much for the work, the effort, the playbook that is ready to be released.
Thanks to you too.
You're going to have it in your email inbox, everyone joining, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And Laure and Cristina, thanks for joining us here, and enjoy hopefully a nice summertime.
Thank you all. Have a nice afternoon.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.